In the end, the chateau is but a small.
What? No, just like Bronwyn, you do it so airy, like it's like right before the episode started, guys. Jessica's a little under the weather right now. She's like, Ben, if I'm muted, I'm dying. In the end, like never say that Jessica's not a talented actor because she can turn it on when she wants to. Because like, we do our clap for silence, and she's like, "Oh man, this fuck like I can take a puff of a cigarette. Oh, this fucking day." In the end.
Hey, dude, professional pants go on.
Professional pants come on.
I do. That's the best compliment you've ever given me, and another compliment you gave me too was that you thought I was a good writer. And honestly, I go out to lunch on those compliments every day. So thank you for that. It's nice to know when your friends like think of you that way. I listened to a podcast called The Hilarious World of Depression. Are you familiar with that?
No, there's like not that many podcasts out there, so you know it's really
no word.
easy to
It's
find.
like it's a really obscure medium, and it's like
yeah, I wonder when it's gonna blow up. Like,
I don't even know how to play them, man. Like, where do you find them?
right? And it's not like every single stand-up comedian has one. Every single retired and current athlete has one. Anybody that's ever been on a show is like, how can I milk this further about the one show that I was really popular in? Like, it's
fuck.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's crazy. It's
actually, I think we're done.
I think we're done. I think we're good. We had a good run, you know.
Jesus, it's when you put, I think I literally had a dream last night about like all the celebrities that have podcasts and the pointlessness of trying to throw your voice into the mix nowadays. Like
I had a dream about my favorite athlete of the moment, Caitlin Clark.
You're all in on that.
Dude, and it was like, when I say I had a dream about Caitlin Clark, when a man says he has a dream about a woman, it always goes to a certain place, or your mind goes to
assume that, by the way.
That's good. I appreciate that, because it wasn't. I was literally at this bar, this crazy warehouse of a bar that had like 90,000 screens, and I was like saving seats for her opening game, like for the WNBA. And then, of course, like, you know, your mind can only do so much. So like, I didn't watch the game because, you know, there's no game to watch.
Right.
Because she hasn't premiered yet. But then, well, I don't know how this happened, but it's like one of those dreams you remember. I don't remember a lot of dreams, but I really remember this one where I showed up to an interview in, I don't have any snapback hats, but I showed up to a job interview in a tie-dye shirt and a snapback hat for like a PR firm.
What?
I don't know. But then I got hired, and our first client was Caitlin Clark, and I was very excited to meet her. So I was like, this is a pretty good dream. It's a pretty good dream.
Wow. I feel like it's prescient. I feel like this is totally, that's very cool.
I was really happy. I was like, oh, I got a new job. I get to meet my favorite athlete right now. Like, it was great. It was a good time.
Really like your brain was like really, it wasn't a stress dream either.
No.
That sounds great. I was half of my dream last night. I remember my dreams and vividly until the next day, usually.
Okay.
Like occasionally I have recurring dreams. I have like recurring places. I have like this city that I go to, or I have like parts of dreams where I'll remember, like I avoid dying or getting hurt in dreams really well because I'll go, oh no, I remember this next thing comes up the curve ahead and I can bail here. It's like I've got these like safeguards, and I think improv did that for me. Like where it
Are you yes-anding your dreams?
I swear to God, because I don't have the actor's nightmare dream anymore. I'll like look at the script right before we go on stage and go, okay, I can improv this, as opposed to like all of a sudden we're in the middle of a play and I'm naked and I don't know why. But last night I was also creating puzzles, like spelling puzzles.
Oh, okay.
Really weird. It's very unlike me. But I was like thinking, oh, what's a difficult word that I know that I don't need to look up on Google to create this puzzle?
Yeah.
It was was very weird.
I like that though. Welcome to Podcast of the Rings, everybody.
I love that for us that we're just talking about dreams. That's where it's at. The quote actually that you selected for me to do that I couldn't even get through because I was performing it so well is directly from the appendices, I believe.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah. So this is, I think a lot of people took umbrage with how it was used. But this is a direct quote, Tolkien quote, wherever it
Yes.
lies. So in the quote is, in the end, the shadow is but a small and passing thing. There is light and high beauty forever beyond its reach. Find the light and the shadow will not find you. I think they took umbrage with the fact that it seemed forced. Like this kid hadn't come to his mommy for anything and then came to her and she had to like lullaby him in that moment.
I mean, like people are too hard on children. And I feel like in things where it's like, oh, this kid's so stupid. It's like, yeah, we were stupid. We were stupid.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's so funny seeing like grown adults. And I you know what? I work in a restaurant. I get it. Like I deal with a lot of, high schoolers that come in because
Ooh,
there's a lot
rough.
of high schools like around my area and I'm just like like I just have to say that to myself. If they're rude, and then I'm just like, you're just being a little a-hole. But if they don't tip or something like that, I'm just like, whatever. I try and let it roll off my back. But it's like you have to give grace to a certain extent to children. They are stupid. We were stupid when we were kids too, and I guarantee you, boomers, you were stupid as well. You were not little and it's so funny because it's either this or they're like, oh, Dakota Fanning when she was a kid actor, she's not acting like a kid. It's like, okay, which one do you want? Do you
Right.
want a little serene Dakota Fanning who's speaking monologues and going toe to toe with Denzel and Tom Cruise? Or do you want Theo who's ragdolling around Middle Earth dum 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 dum? Which one do you want? Because
They went that way.
they were, yeah.
No, that's a very good point. I think, we can't help but criticize, and I think we criticize kids really harshly. I think you're totally right.
Yes. And
That's
honestly,
interesting.
with everything that's been coming out, and it's been
Come
the
on, wait, since you
worst.
looked at me. Sorry.
What?
It's been.
Oh yeah, you can't really say that anymore. It's
No,
true.
you really
Yeah.
can't.
But it's been the worst kept secret of
Stop.
how kids are treating um in Hollywood and with the whole what's it called? Quiet on Set, the Drake
Yeah.
Bell, like
Yeah.
the Dan
Amanda
Schneider
buys.
stuff. Yeah. Like it's getting put to the fore. And I feel like it happens every decade or so where oh, this, I feel like we got this in the 2010s, with Miley Cyrus and stuff like that, where, oh, this is what happened. And I remember even a South Park episode about it.
I
Where it's
did not know
this,
it happened to Miley Cyrus.
I don't know what level of anything, but just they're all underpaid. They're all overworked. 95% of them have stage moms who are, living vicariously through them and will do there. What was it? Was it Bruno or was it his show? I can't remember, where he's auditioning babies and he's like, oh, are the babies good with live bees? Oh yeah, they
Mhm.
love live
Mhm.
bees. Oh, they love working with heavy machinery. Oh my, it's like, this is for $150 photo shoot that doesn't even exist. Let alone, a Nickelodeon show that can propel them to whatever may come. It's crazy. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think Dan Schneider's kind of the fall guy right now because when you really look at the where there are children, there will be predators.
yes,
That's Roblox is having an issue and it's built by predators, so it's for predators by predators.
crazy.
It's insane. Smash Brothers has a huge issue with it because there's a bunch of kids playing and then you mix that with adults. I think I told you the time where I played Fortnite and this kid thought I had a voice changer and he thought I was a guy pretending to be a young girl.
Really? No,
Because
you never told me that.
that's how persistent this problem is, or insidious this is, that someone
Yeah.
couldn't believe that I was a real person because dudes out there are pretending. Strangely enough, actually, my first interaction, did I share this recently, was on a Nickelodeon AOL chat, and a 40-year-old dude was like, "Hey, what's up? I'm from Washington. Who are you?" no parental guidance whatsoever.
AIM was
Um,
the Wild West,
well,
dude.
this was the Nickelodeon Kids AOL hub that was special. That was awesome.
Oh, see, I never had that because we had dial up for a long,
This was
long
dial-up.
time. This was
Oh,
dial up?
AOL, isn't AOL dial-up?
That's true, it is, huh?
Right. So like the AOL adult, right, thing, like just like AIM and chat and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was in 7th grade or 6th grade looking at AOL for the first time in my dad's office, and there was the Nickelodeon hub where you could play text-based games about all that against other people, and there were
Yeah.
ranking but there was chat rooms, and the first chat room I go into, there was an adult asking me about ASL or whatever, something insane like that. But
Wild.
my point is there is a systematic problem when it comes to Hollywood, and, like, this was true with the Harvey Weinstein stuff. Harvey Weinstein's the devil, but then there's all the devil's advocates that have
Exactly.
the lawyers that make the people sign the contracts and keep it hush. Nickelodeon knew what was up, and
Yeah.
what so now he's just the fall guy. So anyway, I wanted to start in the business from a young age. I didn't tell you this story recently?
No.
I did just tell the story recently. I went to go meet the agent of an actress that was on Wonder Years, Sabrina, Bring It On. Her mom lived across the street from us, and she's like, to my dad, "Your kids are cute. They could be actors." And I already knew I wanted to be one at 10. So we go meet this agent. The agent pulls us into the room alone and says, "Oh no, parents can't come," because that is how the audition should be. The kid needs to be able to perform
Yeah.
without the parent in the room. Because they actually did this with what's the Meryl Streep, Dustin Hoffman movie where they're getting a divorce and there's a
Oh, I
kid.
know, Kramer versus Kramer?
Correct. They realized that that kid was being coached by the parents every night, so they stopped telling the parents what scene they were doing, and Dustin Hoffman was just working with the kid on set and just, like, having cereal and having breakfast, and it turned into a great performance because he wasn't being coached. Long story short, that's kind of the thought process here. The agent's pulling us into the room to see if we can be our normal selves without the parent.
Mhm.
My dad said, "Fuck no," and we never went back, we never signed with the person, we never entered the business until we were full adults,
Yeah.
which he protected us. Would we have had that same situation? Would I have been as cute as Victorious or whatever? Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
But he did shelter us from this very true and real problem with kids in the
Yeah.
business. Absolutely.
No,
Even though I
it's
was like, I wish I could do this, you know? Anyway, I don't know.
yeah. So
Theo
I
sucks.
Yeah, he's not a great actor after all that, but I don't think I can fault him as like a dumb kid who has like clearly been influenced by an entire town that is like waiting for the Dark Lord's return and hates elves and all these things. Like, yeah, dude, kids are really easily influenced, especially when he's being raised by a single mom and anytime he goes out, he's just surrounded by a bunch of elf races and like like
God, this
Sauron truthers. Like,
that's a really weird parallel that I hadn't drawn until now. That like they because we did do the watch through with our Patreon. Join us if you'd like by going to our Patreon /podcast of the rings. Just for $2 a month, you can watch the show with us. And Ulrich over from Geeks with Shields was bringing up a good point that maybe they didn't talk too much about the Numenorians being of superior blood because of how the current climate of our world. But
yes,
interestingly enough, you've got elf racists on Numenor, you got elf racists on the Southlands. There's a lot of mirroring our current culture right now,
yeah,
which is interesting. I will say this about Theo because I get clearly we're not following any. We have to talk about this, but like I actually do buy his performance for as much as it's possible to buy it. And he is like just trying to be this tough kid who's 14 and thinks he knows better. And then he is a scared kid who's coming to who's his mommy that he needed up until 2 years ago. You
yeah. It's
know,
like he's being forced to grow up really fast.
Mhm.
I mean, one in a fantasy world where like no dad, yeah, by 12 you are the man of the house, like
Sure.
for sure. And then on top of that, now he's being faced with like war and famine and all these crazy like bigger picture things than just surviving day to day, which is very hard in medieval times. So I can understand it to a certain extent where it's like his performance isn't like terrible or anything, but I was okay with, him kind of reverting back where, okay, things are getting very real now
Yeah.
and I'm not ready for this. Like,
And they got real the night before. So the
yeah.
beginning of the whole Southland experience in Udûn, this episode, is Adar and the orcs coming to the tower, and it doesn't look like anybody is there. And we, have the dramatic, not irony, but we know, right, that they're probably hiding. And that was intense what they just went through. Or wait, did they send them all?
I think they like loop them around or something like that, where somehow they wind up back in the village. Like, I don't know how they whoopsie daisied them
They did, but
there.
they whoopsie daisy them while the tower was falling. They must have, right? Or did they whoopsie daisy them before the tower was falling? I
It
don't
seems
remember
like they
now.
got back to town like at night.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like the passage of night, both nights that this takes place, because we see Adar make this speech of like, we've never had a home, now it's time to make our home, and then they march on the tower, they get bamboozled. The elf, what's his name? I don't know. Like,
Arondir.
I knew it was A. Arondir, shoots a few, and then collapses the tower on them, and then they're just like, okay, we're safe, and
Do you know
then
how
they're
I
back in town.
remember Arondir?
Mm.
He kind of looked like A-Rod to me. So like Arondir.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of there.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, that they kind of yada that whole thing where
Mhm.
it's we've talked about this episode kind of since we started, that this was the good one.
That we were
This
looking
was,
forward to.
and there is a lot of really good stuff here, but you have such a blueprint of Lord of the Rings charges, Lord of the Rings surprises, traps,
Sure.
all these things, and they're done so poorly.
You mean how it's executed in Rings of
Yes,
Power? Like,
how it's filmed. Like, I understand, yeah, the charge is there, but it's like with this trap, with the tower trap, yeah, we get kind of they're gonna march on here and the tower will fall, and then they both look at the tower and go, like everyone knows what's coming. Like, I'm fine with that. I don't need it to be a
sure.
big surprise, but the way it's just kind of yada yada. It's like, it's not this big epic thing where they've been getting their butts kicked the whole season, losing. All the elves are gone, like running away from town, and then they lose half their army, and then the guy's like, "Oh, you want to prove yourself? You got to kill this kid," which I still don't know if he did or not. You said last week that he
I
didn't.
thought we saw him again, but he must have.
I'm assuming you thought he was one of the Southlanders that gets unmasked. I could see why you thought that, because I was like, is that who Jess was thinking of? I didn't say that during the watch along, but I assume that's who you were talking about.
I think that's must have been what I thought. There's also a world too, just in movie, TV language. If you don't see someone die, they didn't. And I think I was
Fair.
expecting the kid to
No.
not have been killed. Do you know
No,
what I
totally fair. I mean, never more so is that true than the end of this episode.
mean? Sure.
But just like, this could have been such a big moment that they should have. I
Wow.
understand that you're like, okay, we got to celebrate this, but now we didn't kill their whole army. We got to get to work setting traps and stuff like that. But it was just like, this could have been a Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven kind of moment. Bug's Life for all the kids out there, like, where you have a Rondir like going around being like, hey, this is how you make a spear. Okay, dig this trap here. Where like, you don't have to give away the big plans, but you show the villagers earning preparing, sharpening sticks, building trenches, building traps. I see, they put the arrows on the roof, but that's kind of it. And then, I don't know, there is some really good stuff here.
And you're talking about when they come back to town.
Yeah. But
So-
even like the tower falling, I don't know how Adar survives that, because he's like at the front of the army, and then the tower falls, then they're like, whew, man, okay, Luckily, the whole village managed to sneak out of here somehow in this one-way bridge on a tower on a hill.
That I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Like, and this is what Ulrich was bringing up too, that like by leaving that stronghold, they really lose all of their like they lose their high ground, they lose their advantage.
I understand like if they didn't, but it's like, did they leave all their weapons and stuff at the village? Because
Why
otherwise,
would they have done that?
this does feel like you're leaving Helm's Deep to go fight at Edoras, like for the one surprise moment of being like, oh, we're not here. It's like, okay, well, you're at the very easily attackable place now.
Well, to your point, like Bronwyn doesn't even use a weapon. She uses a sickle. Her weapon is a sickle.
To be fair, she she was like, I killed the first orc. I'm never letting this sickle go again.
You can't. That is her identifying weapon, 100%. I guess my brain doesn't work so tactically. And in the first couple of watchings of this episode, it never bothered me. Will it bother me thinking about it moving forward? Maybe. But I feel like symbolically what the showrunners wanted was for us to see them fight for their land and say, we deserve to be here. We're not going to be kicked out, even though they're at a disadvantage tactically.
But again, like you have a Fargo's such a good example. I don't know if you've ever watched the Fargo show.
Just the first season.
Okay, like there's plenty of references or kind of homages to the Coen brothers stuff in there. Like in season 2, there's a fight between two guys, and it's basically the fight from No Country for Old Men, where they're kind of like cat and mousing each other. And I'm like, oh, I like this. It's not overdone because it's 30 seconds, but I understand what you're referencing here. And you have a literal one-to-one of like, oh, we're leaving our homes. Yeah, but we're going to the stronghold and we're going to defend there. And then like, you could have just done everything was there to do Helm's Deep of them going to a tower fortress, defending, you're about to lose, and then a bunch of horsebacks come and save you. Like, it's right there. I don't know, like, I didn't really think of the whole strong point either. That doesn't bother me, like, too much, but I'm like, guys, you had the
light
blueprint
coming over the hill and
everything. Dawn
everything.
coming with an elf leading the charge of a bunch of men. Like, I know Gandalf's not an elf, but like it's the same thing on a white horse. Like,
holy shit.
It's all just right there. And I'm just like, oh. And it didn't bug me until the fact that I think we'll get to the fight itself, but just like the way they film it, where they show the horses coming, but then
it's still dark outside.
But not even. I don't.
Oh, okay.
That really doesn't bug me that much. I don't like the passage of time in Middle Earth makes no sense.
They're on their way. Yeah.
But the fact that like we don't see Gandalf, like it'd be like showing like Gandalf and Aramir like, come on, let's go, while they're breaking down they're like right before Aragorn's speech of like, oh, ride out with me. Oh well, it doesn't matter because we know the reinforcements are coming. Like that's what they did, and then when they finally do come, it's not like this epic shot of these horses sweeping into the village. It's like really close, and I see like 10 horses go by. And again, right after that, there's some cool stuff with like nets and chains and cutting orcs' heads off and some pretty good action. So it is followed by some good stuff, but just like you finally have Galadriel back in Middle Earth. You have her convinced that the men of all men in the history of this land, the best that ever was, like SEAL Team 6 times 200, like are there. Like, we are here to fight for our fellow man. We refuse for the darkness, like to sit around and do nothing while darkness takes over this land. And we are back, and just like, we're there. Okay, charge over. It's like, oh no, it's you're again. I feel like I've repeated myself every episode where I'm like, you're right there. You're so close. And again, if it wasn't for you having a legit blueprint of like, I don't need a shot-for-shot remake of Helm's Deep, but you have your perfect inspiration that people will enjoy as well. Is that like I don't need, Galadriel being like, oh, the Southland calls for aid, and then, Elendil right
No.
behind her, like, and we are here. Like, I don't need the same thing to happen, but you do have a perfect moment of like, have the sun. We have shown that these orcs are borderline vampires with the sun burning their skin. Have them crest the hill with the sunrise, and all the orcs are like, oh my gosh, lost track of time. Like, it's right there.
I mean, it's almost as if they planned to have done that and then realized they couldn't do it on that scope. So that's why they got the sweeping shot of them running, because that's the only time they could have 500 horses. Because they set it up with Elendil on the boat going, I feel like I'm heading into the suns, like the whole line about them riding towards the sunset or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, why they're setting it up, to your point too, and I can't help but think the two times that they did pay quote unquote homage to the movies are cringe to me, because it's when Galadriel says Nora Lim to her horse to run faster, cringe, and then Elendil talking to the horse like Aragorn, it makes me want to die. Like those are like, because
well, it's so funny because he does that when he's like, "Oh, it can sense your feel, Isildur." No, dude, it senses a volcano's about to explode. Like,
it's the biggest load. He loses all credibility in that moment. Yeah, he really does.
I love Zaddy Elendil, but it's just like, bro, it's to quote the kids nowadays, it's not that deep. It's just like an animal reacting to what is happening, like, because they have that sixth sense.
I love that. Well, yeah, I just have to think that at the end of the day, their budget or their scale couldn't have been pulled off, and so they tried to fudge it. But I think you're totally right. It was right there. There was so many different ways they could have sucked us in. There's a reason why Helm's Deep works. It's not like, Peter Jackson invented the rescue, the daytime rescue.
No.
These are visual film language cues that audiences are built in to know and love. Just give us a little bit of like some sugar that we're going to recognize. Yeah, totally.
Like, give us that, like, exactly. The sugar's such a perfect way to put it, Jess, where it's just like, it's there. It doesn't last very long, but God, it tastes so good.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like I said, there's a lot of good stuff about this episode, and we're gonna rewind and talk about the fight with the Southlanders before the charge. But that was the main thing, is because I had forgotten. I thought that because the shot of the horses looks so good,
Beautiful,
and so just like right before that moment where Adar is like one by one killing the villagers, I was like, oh, this is like R-rated stuff. Especially, there's one where the orc like slowly drives a blade into a woman. I was like, this is intense stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, there's a lot of good things where this is real. This is not play violence. This is not like, oh, the stakes aren't that high. No, Bronwyn is bleeding out on a table, and they're like, okay, kill that person, kill this person, kill this. It reminded me a lot of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where the first time I watched it, Curse of the Black Pearl,
Never
live
seen
action.
it.
Oh my God, Jessica, it is so good. It is literally my favorite live action Disney movie ever made.
Really?
I'm telling you, the sequels are what they are. I understand why they made them, for sure. But the first one is legitimately, I'd call it a perfect movie, honestly. Like, it's, it did get nominated for Oscars. I think Johnny Depp got nominated for that movie, but it's not like, a prestige movie, but it is, I'll say, a perfect blockbuster. I'll say that. It is a perfect blockbuster.
Sure. Interesting.
It is so great. But I remember there's a scene where like the Skull Pirates are sneaking on like a British ship, and they're like slitting throats and like stabbing dudes. And I was like, this is a Disney movie. And that's how I felt here. It's, like Return of the King, when they launched the decapitated heads over the walls. It's like, I was like, oh, this is real. Like,
and like, even in Helm's Deep, we don't see a woman die. No,
that's the thing, is that I always, we said it, where it's like, there's always hope. That kid's dead. That kid dies. Every farmer, that you see in the slow-mo draft in the glittering caves, dead.
Wow.
But they don't show it.
No.
There's just there's a cut from when the doors break down in the keep, and then they go back to the Entmoot, and then when you come back, there's all the Saruman flags, and they're breaking down the door of the castle, but there's no bodies, there's no nothing. That does not happen here. It is brutal. There's a slow driving blade, and you hear people's screams and blood hitting the floor, and so it is really building up to this charge, and I just feel like they just swing and a miss. Like they're just,
Yeah.
you see the pitch is coming down 85 miles an hour, just right, like they call it a meat pitch, where you just winding up
Meat
and you
pitch.
just like feel like the batter, like, oh my God, and then just swing, and he pulls his hamstring and he's out for the season. Like, and
it's ricochets and hit him
yeah,
in the
it's like it ended up being it ended up being a double instead of like a grand slam or something like that. And so it's just, there is really good stuff in this episode. We haven't even gotten to the Arondir fight against the big orc, which is awesome because it's some really I kept saying he throws him off the roof, and it's a great cut of him the stuntman rolling down the roof, and it goes behind the well, and then you see Arondir shake, and it's that's great.
A lot of practical and
Yes.
slight CGI touches really make some of the stuff that goes on in this episode and that scene in particular A tier, almost S tier.
You can, and that's what bugs me even more about it, is that this is not some journeyman director just putting in a day's work. They did choreography, they did stunt casting, they did the work for a lot of this.
Wow.
And so it's so frustrating to see the biggest crescendo moment just feels a little coasted over, and it's almost more confusing than infuriating, because I'm you're building so much to this moment where, okay, we fell the tower, and then we've got a little break, and then we're building the traps, and then things are going really well. Oh my gosh, they're all Southlander people, they're not orcs, and then everything starts going downhill, and it's really great stuff, and then you're the all is lost moment is here, and then the big rescue, but the big rescue is just kind of oh, I don't want to make the Tim Robinson face, but ow. Ow.
It's a good face.
It is really good face.
There's something recently where 3 times last night, whatever I was watching, I think you should leave, the phrase happened, and it just made me want to go watch.
Yeah, it's so good. He's his humor has been seeped into pop culture now, where every absurdist skit you find is just so, as the kids say, Tim Robinson coded. And it really is. He has had a huge effect on comedy in general. And I know that's a very broad term, but
I think it was Janelle that put me on the tip. Janelle, our mutual friend, Janelle Santa Cruz, put me on the tip that real life cringe was gonna become a thing as a couple years ago. Because she was doing her cringe show on Twitch and stuff. And I rely on people like her who knows what's up to kind of help clue me in to the meta of the world. And he really captures, this is something that gets talked about with actors too, how do you find your niche where you're gonna book? And Tom Cruise is always the guy that's gonna survive. Kathy Bates is always the put upon nurse who wants to help but is not in the best position to help one way or another. And and Tim Robbins really captures this. I will not. I am his social awkwardness he will not allow it to get the best of him. He will dig in deep. The opening of I Think You Should Leave is perfect, with the first scene where he just no, it's a push and pull door, and he breaks the hinge. It drops you immediately into this, and I think it must be doing so well because we all resonate with those moments where we just want to put a bullet in our head rather than say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just farted." You know what I mean? He really does dig deep into those. So I think Arondir walks out the victor in this episode. I found some of the Galadriel on the boat moments cringe too. This is there's a couple things that happen in this fucking episode that are insane. Like when Isildur takes a bite of the apple, gives Beric a bite of the apple, takes a bite of the apple again, which could be weird if you thought about it, but he
Yeah.
loves his horse, whatever. And then throws the rest of the fucking apple into the ocean instead of giving it to the goddamn horse. It makes no sense. Feed the fucking apple to the horse, dude. Like, you don't have that much fruit on the fucking ship where you can chuck it. Like, there's a compost bin somewhere.
Yeah, you really don't belong in this sea guard, dude. Like, you suck.
It's so fucking weird that they let that happen. Like, feed the horse, even if it's like maybe the horse has already eaten too much and they had because the horse didn't really.
Yeah, like how many bites? Like he doesn't have a spit bucket.
Exactly. Then just play a game where I'm not gonna give it to you, Beric. Or you know what? Cut the apple, dude, because it's fucking weird. So anyway, you get a scene with Galadriel and Isildur, and she's hitting on him, even though she slept with Elendil the night before. And she goes, "I should have known that your father was an elf fucker. Like you're an elf." I don't know. I was going for it.
You really were. Oh my god.
I think I'm
Cruella DeVille?
I know that the dark side of me is coming out right now.
Oh my gosh. This one scene of an apple in his Isildur is broken Jessica. It's her villain origin story.
You know what?
We're gonna be on the season 2 finale. Like, yeah, I really like this scene where Galadriel and Halbrand finally have their confrontation. It's much better than Isildur throwing a fucking apple into the sea.
Dude, I would let this be my villain origin story because it's such a bad detail that I can't trust the creators anymore.
Yeah,
that they let this scene go. Was the mic so poorly blown out before you couldn't like just give me the scene where he feeds the fucking apple to the horse. I don't understand.
Yeah.
So anyway, Isildur is like feeling sorry for himself for being the horse shit cleaner upper dude. And Galadriel is humble bragging about being able to see land an hour ago. Like it's just weird. It's just a weird scene.
Yeah, elf vision. Okay, I've always wondered this. If you have crazy vision like that, do you have like eyes that go in and out? Like everything binoculars in any movie or whatever. Like, can they like? Does she go like zoom, enhance, zoom, or like? Or is she like seeing the pores of Isildur's skin and she's like cross-eyed if someone gets too close to her?
Well, I don't know. I think the answer lies in looking at.
Is that in the appendices?
to call back to an Alex joke, it's in appendice Y. You can look it up. I think you can get an idea of how the eyes work when you look at the hobbits they're taking the hobbits to Isengard. He definitely peers in a little bit more.
I would have given Peter Jackson $1 billion if he had Legolas too.
Or like a RoboCop.
Yeah, enhance.
I mean, basically, Elrond's ears worked that way in the Misty Mountains. He was like, "Ooh."
No, he was lip reading. That's the thing. Like they can zoom in and zoom out with their eyeballs. He was lip reading.
My fucking my whole paradigm in my world has just shifted.
Welcome to the Thunderdome, baby.
I just turned into Tina Turner somehow. Or you're Tina Turner.
I'm Tina Turner. How dare you?
I'm so sorry. I stole that
Gibson.
moment. It's so true. It's so true.
You guys haven't heard the voicemails Jessica's left me.
Oh no. You know what? I don't know how to say this without saying it. I feel like Mel Gibson and I probably share blood.
Oh no.
I know.
We'll cut that out.
No, I'm not saying I'm proud of it. I'm just saying something about him. I don't know, something about him. I don't like him. I'm not saying I don't I don't know how. I will cut this out. There's no way.
Yeah, you can't.
There's no way to
You
explain
can't.
this.
There's
Okay.
no way.
No, I just very clearly denounce.
Stop. Big edit. Jessica has lost her mind over Isildur's apple. It's official. Jessica is going straight to the Reddit boards with all the dude bros. Like, you know what? You're right, guys. Fuck this show. It's too woke. And have you seen the scene with the apple? And they're gonna be like, what?
I do think I have to keep this in because I don't understand. I don't even know. This is just for posterity. I don't like the man. But you know what it is? I mourn the loss of what he could have been if he wasn't a fucking anti-Semite.
Like,
Do you know what I mean?
You can say that about like almost any controversial or just flat out bad artist. Like you watch Mad Max, you watch Lethal Weapon. The guy is so charismatic, and I liked the Andrew Garfield war movie he directed. I've liked all of his movies that he's directed. Like he's a good director, he's a good actor, he's just a terrible human being.
Yeah. That's basically what I was getting to, and I couldn't say it in any funny way. You're welcome, internet. If you want to splice that and ruin my life, go for it. No, but you're Tina Turner. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have good legs? I don't have good legs.
I do not have good legs.
You're not like you're a bicep dude.
Well, compared to Tina Turner, who does have good legs?
Well, I'm not trying to compare. I mean, Miley Cyrus, but I know she's going full Tina Turner, and it's great. So yeah, Elendil says that his wife drowned. You know, he shares that tidbit of information.
He needs more monologues. That man needs to read me a bedtime story, honestly.
He's so good. They really underutilize him.
I found a TikTok of Tom Hardy reading like a children's book, Big Crab, Little Crab, and it's just like, I'll send it to you because I think I reposted it. It's just so great.
It's love like
the simplest stuff. But that man, like the way Andy Serkis has done audiobooks, he should do the audiobook for the Silmarillion.
I would listen to it. I would listen to Andy Serkis's, and then I would listen to his. It's just they did do good casting with him.
They did.
So yeah, like to rewind a little bit, we see at our like talking about like some of us are gonna die, but you really see how much he cares for the orcs right before they do charge the tower. The tower sequence is pretty good. Arondir is just, he lets off arrows. I think he looks better than Legolas doing it. I really do.
He looks too, maybe it's like, different generation type elves or something like that, but he looks like too fancy when he does his thing. Like Legolas, he's an elf, bro. Yeah, but Legolas he's elf royalty, literally, and he's just like, I don't know.
He's much quicker about it.
He is faster. Yeah.
I think they are showing us, and this kind of, he's not cutting corners in his technique around here. That's a really good point. I think we are seeing how the sausage is made while he like knocks the bow. That's the difference. Yes. When instead Legolas doesn't have the time, he's like boom, and it is that he is moving so rapid fire fast. I'm willing to suspend disbelief and think that we're just seeing it slowed down, but he's actually moving much faster in real life.
It's like one of my favorite parts about the Matrix is that all the slow motion stuff is in slow-mo. Like the fact that all these things, like that whole SWAT team fight in the lobby takes place in like 30 seconds, and it's like 10 minutes of time when it's just like, no, they're just moving that fast. You need to slow it down, otherwise you wouldn't see any of it.
Wow. I think it is unfair for me to say that Legolas, that Arondir is necessarily he just looks prettier doing it. He's just gorgeous when he's shooting those arrows.
I think it's also that like Arondir, the actor, is more of like a grown man than little waif Orlando Bloom was. I kind of compare Hobbit Orlando Bloom to Arondir more than Lord of the Rings Orlando Bloom. Because like, and even like in the Hobbit, they're like, let's give him a sword. Orlando Bloom is so big in that movie. He's
burly in that movie.
Like the de-aging and the makeup don't bother me too much, but I'm like, you can't like hide the fact that he gained like 30 pounds of muscle. Like he just grew up, and so it's just like
really did.
So they're like, okay, you're right. He needs a broadsword. He needs Orcrist for like the entire movie. So we're just gonna give
God,
him Orcrist.
that's because it would look so weird. Like he would be like playing with toothpicks, like
Yeah.
that's very funny. Yeah, so we also get that killer fight. Like we let's fast forward a little bit. Southlands, they all go to the town. Um, is this what? No, so you brought up such a good point that Arondir is just wasting his energy and time. Wasting.
I forgot about this. I was reading the synopsis and it's like, this would be like I said, this would be the perfect Seven Samurai moment where you have the one warrior in town going from place to place, trap here, spikes here, spears here, arrows up there, archers over here. Like,
All
but
his homies
instead,
are dead. He's the only one who knows
he
how
is the
any
only
tactical
one.
fights. That's
Like
it.
he's made the speeches. We're here, so just like keep doing your thing because it's working. Instead, we cut to Arondir on a porch with a hammer trying to, I don't know, break the sword, the blood demon sword, like just hitting it a few times with a like I don't think that'd do anything to a regular sword, like let alone like a devil powered sword. I don't know, like is it just me? But it was just
No, it's
it was
such a poor use of his.
especially the blocking. It's like you have this gorgeous human that you've had basically sleeveless with good looking gauntlets, like his arms look great when he's pulling a bow and everything. Have him at like a smith anvil, like duh, duh, like just going like make it, put it in the Zack Snyder slow-mo. Give me some thirst here, people. But instead, you have him knees together like an old woman sewing, and he's like, meh, meh, meh. Subscribe to the Patreon to get both those visuals that I just did. So it's just like, again, you have, even if it's still like a dumb thing to do, you could still have it look good because you have a good looking man. Like,
Have the sparks, have the fire
yes,
behind him. He tried to cast it into the fire like the ring.
Jessica, it's right there. There's so much to pull from. Like, for having only six movies, like this isn't, Godzilla, this isn't the MCU, but you have 6 very visually driven movies to pull a lot of things from. And they just don't. Where like I understand to a certain extent of like, we want to make our own thing. We don't just want to be references and member berries. I get it. I'm with you. But you know what? It's there for a reason. You don't have, like, you are making your own show. You literally don't have the rights to make actual Silmarillion. So this is, I'm not calling it fan fiction, but this is an original story, basically,
Yes.
with characters we know. And so you have, it's right there. It's just right there. It's just right there. So I don't know. It's just strange to me where they are, with the Mithril, with it's not with Durin, with Galadriel. Like you have all these original stories that we didn't happen in the books, but then you don't want to visually represent or like visually reference really good stuff from
right.
great source material. It's a very strange choice, but again, yeah, and that's the thing is that I'm fine with them like not showing the plans, like with the wagons coming in with the fire and trapping them, really cool, surprise me with that. But show me them building traps, show me them practicing archery, show me like them doing all these things, like let me get involved.
Yeah.
Let me get involved with this because
Care
again,
about those people a little bit.
yeah,
Right? Like,
like we said, like I like making the joke that the Halif, son of Hamma, obviously dies in Helm's Deep, but that moment of Aragorn swinging the sword and there is always hope, like that's a great moment. And we do have Arondir giving that speech, and it works. But just like have him, you've had these townspeople that have felt like outcasts in their own home because they're constantly being surveilled by these elves. Like, yeah, we're not saying it out loud, but we don't trust you. Like you're in a a national security state. Like you're in a surveillance state. Like we're Big Brother. We're the Patriot Act, basically. And so it'd be great for him to go, and you have, even Numenor is like, we don't really like elves because they're going to take our jobs. Have this elf go from person to person and inspire them and just be like, no, you're holding the bow wrong. Oh, when you swing an axe, you want to aim for this. Their armor is weak in the neck and under the arms, like just simple stuff like that where we'd love Arondir even more because it would be like, oh, he genuinely cares about humans, not just Bronwyn. Like
Would
he's
it
not
have
just
been a repeat of the beat from the episode previously, though, with Galadriel teaching the dumb boys?
but they're not sparring. Like
Right,
but
right.
also but again, it's a difficulty of we get so little time with these immortal, holier than thou, perfect beings in the movies that they are like kind of shrouded in like this mystery. It's like, oh, why can Legolas walk on snow? Like that's never mentioned. Like he just does it. He's
Right.
just that good. And so it's like really just cool moments. But if we're gonna live with these elves, if we're gonna get to know Galadriel, the Lady of Light, who dares not pluck her hair out for anybody except someone she deems worthy, then we're gonna have these human moments. We're gonna have like them teaching and coaching, like expend your knowledge and your eternal wisdom onto these people that are clearly struggling. And especially like it's one thing for Numenor not to have like an army, which is really strange, but the Southlands definitely like it's just a tiny village.
Totally.
It's not even like the country of the Southlands. It's one small village that has no army, that has no soldiers, doesn't even have like a town sheriff or anything like that. Like and
Haldrag,
half of
kinda.
Haldreg, but he's gone.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he's on the bad side.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel like this could have been a really great moment to where like, yeah, this is a really dire situation. You're gonna have to do more than just give a pregame Al Pacino speech or something like that.
Yeah.
And like it would have made like their deaths way more impactful of like, it doesn't take, like we always talk about like the extras in like the Peter Jackson movies that are just like giving it their all,
Yeah.
like for their, their 15 seconds. And when they die, you really feel it. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I really like that guy. Even, the guy that in the Charge of the Black Gate, there's always the guy that sprints out ahead. I'm like, I hope that guy's okay. He's really fast. I like him. It's like, it's the simplest thing.
I mean, even deciding to like kill the heavyset orc onto the tower, we spent enough time looking at him that we recognize the loss of him, right? Like there goes a minion, that we recognize. I don't know that we did that enough. We didn't get to see anybody else besides the really bad people of this town that were worth saving and fighting for. So much so that when Bronwyn can't light a fucking wagon on fire, she lets that bitch just die.
That is the craziest scene out of like a lot of brutal deaths. Like I like the struggle of her not being able to spark the flint or whatever it is. But when she like takes a swing at the orc and he swings at her and she ducks and she just slits that lady's throat, I was like, did she not warn her that this was gonna like why is she here?
Have grabbed her? Right?
Like, why is she there? You don't need two people to light this thing. Like, it's such a crazy thing where I'm just like, if it would have been it's impactful enough because I was like so shocked and I was like, oh, this like, it was like, just thinking about it now, I'm really thrown off by it because like, I remember watching it and they're just like, Brahma doesn't even look at her. She's like she borderline like spits at her. Like, fucking weakling. Like like it was the craziest thing where like Bronwyn's like shown to be this big empath and really care about her people, and then just like that lady dies, and that's why you should have like these like building moments where you really care about the townsfolk, because like even when you don't. You have this poor lady who didn't need to be there to light a match and then just dies. Like, so it was
because of Bronwyn.
Yeah, it reminded me of like the babysitter from Jurassic World, where you have like all these people dying, and it's like, oh yeah, all the military guys are dying. Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio's dying. But then you have this babysitter who's just like, oh, I have to babysit these kids, gets plucked by a pterodactyl, pecked half to death in the water, like dropped 3 times, and then the Mosasaurus comes out and eats her. And it's just like, it was the most out of left field thing where it's like, this isn't, Dennis Nedry who's trying to steal all the formulas. This isn't, this isn't like the bad human guy that's getting their comeuppance. It's just a random like assistant of Bryce Dallas Howard who gets like the most brutal death on screen. And that's how this felt, where like even in the scene with Adar where he's like, kill each villager every second he doesn't give me the sword. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's still like tough to watch.
Yeah.
But, like, this poor lady who just like one swing of the sword, instead of like, she has her sickle, she could block it, instead just like ducks it and like, whoops.
It's really, because even more so, we're supposed to care when they realize that half the people that they were fighting with, the orcs, were them, were the other half of the town. And we don't recognize a single face in that.
Not
town.
a single, like, if they would have shown the kid, which, I'm guessing that's who you thought, because it does look like him.
I don't know what I thought. I just thought maybe I was like, I don't
honestly
know.
When you said that, I was like, maybe that's the kid. So I understand like you're
Sure.
thinking if that is your thought, but like, yeah, we just see humans. And so I'm just like, I'm not like totally unempathetic, because people get manipulated and like, oh, maybe we're gonna lose, so let's try and go to the winning side, and then they get put on the front lines. But it's like, we didn't know any of the townspeople except the one guy that's not there.
Right, exactly. So it is those, and again, the point that you brought up last week, there's so much fucking time, and you wasted it if you didn't get us to know 5 of the people that live there. Granted, yeah, we are there for Bronwyn. We're there for the will they, won't they, and dumb Theo and all that. But there's still, even Peter Jackson gives us the number 2 and 3 guy that we can care about when we lose them or not, that are recognizable. That's a really interesting point. So fast forward a little bit during this fight. We get the sick ass Arondir fighting the giant troll who brings himself to a fight. And then the horror moment of getting stabbed in the eye and then dropping all the blood into
pulling the knife out and all the blood is, it's a great scene. And it does kind of separate itself, where there are like a lot of brutal moments in the Peter Jackson 6 movies, but it does like, there's no like slow driving of a knife while blood is pouring into the mouth of it. Like it's good stuff. And it's like, oh man, this show, it's got the juice.
Yeah.
It just needs to like aim it. And so, but that's a good scene. And like, I think the reveal is a good idea, but they showed way too many orcs. Like for me to
believe that that's what
just like, if they had, if they should have died faster, like the first group, that like the trap should have just worked, the wagon, and then just like arrows, and then you don't see anybody else, so they come, like the villagers come with the spears, and they're like, picking through the weapons, and then you're like, oh, these are our friends, these are our townsfolk, and that would have hit harder. Because it like, the surprise does work to a point where arrows, like, and it's so simple, where you have the one big guy with the spear really carrying his weight, and he's the first one to get shot, like, by the surprise attack, and you're like, oh no, I like the big guy, he was doing great. That's how simple it is. It's like, I don't need, Rebel Moon Part 2, the Zack Snyder movie, came out this weekend, and there's like, I haven't seen it, so I can't judge it, but I've seen a clip where the main characters will go around in a circle and be like, well, when I was a child, oh, good story. When I was a child, oh, I like both of your stories. When I was a child, like, there's a scene like that, like everybody
around
gives
the
their
campfire, basically.
Like all at once, all the backstories at once, and I don't need that. But just like the simple fact that you like as an audience, you do latch on to people. You latch on like, oh, that woman is really good with the bow and she's hitting shots. Oh, the big guy with the spear and the rugby cap, whatever he's wearing, he's really putting work down there. And when they both get shot first, you're like, no, those are our best fighters. Like now we're screwed.
Yeah.
It's easy visual language to put on screen, and I feel like they could have done it more. But like that is when the show does get brutal, where like Bronwyn gets shot borderline in the heart. And so it is really cool that like the orcs are smart enough, or Adar is smart enough to be like, 1, 2, 3, shoot them first, because they're leader, best fighter, best archer, right there. And it's great. So that these are really good moments. And so that, them breaking down the pub door is great, and then slowly going in. And that's where, have some horns blowing, right? They give the sword up, right? Theo gives the sword up to save his mom, which another really good scene. But like have the horns blowing, because like it's one thing for the army to kind of like turn and look up on the mountain, but like they're in like a closed building.
They're in like a tavern or something like that.
Yeah, it's like the same beat kind of happens where when the Númenóreans come, Arondir kind of starts fighting again when they're distracted, but then like when the volcano explodes, the orc prisoners kind of start fighting against the Númenóreans, but you don't see really either of those things happen past like the 2-second cut. But then the Númenóreans come in and save the day. There's some good fighting there. I think it's some really great Legolas stuff where he like Galadriel does like the matrix on the horse to avoid an arrow.
Yes.
Awesome stuff, because that is a real person on a horse doing that.
Yes.
That looks great.
Yeah.
And again, that's what shows like that there was a lot of effort and time put in this episode with the choreography. Horses are not easy to manage on set, and those are real horses, like whether, even if it's just 10 or 15 horses, that is a lot of horses in a small area. So shout out to the director and the showrunners on this episode. It's a lot of great stuff.
Just that alone gives me anxiety, seeing the horses under.
I mean, even when Isildur's like trying to comfort his horse, I'm like, that's a real live animal like acting distressed. Like I don't know,
what
it's
they
like,
do to put them in those situations.
Yeah, and like when it's the same with like Aragorn and Brago when he like tames them in the stable. I'm like, that horse is like really. This isn't like a CGI horse. Like,
no, I know.
Viggo Mortensen's like going up to a bucking horse right now and could easily get kicked in the face. So like that stuff, there are things that I don't know if I could do as an actor, and that would be one of them. Is like walking up to a wild animal and being like, "No, you're okay."
But no, do.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, a lot of good stuff here. I think it's a good mixture of the Númenóreans easily cleaning up the orcs while having actual action. Because like I understand, like as a Middle Earth guy, I want the Númenóreans to not have a single issue, just like
Yes.
hot knife through butter right now, because these are not Uruk-hai. These are just these are basic goblin orcs guys, and I just want them to mow down. But then you also need some sword fighting. You need to have some action. So
3 orcs on one dude or whatever, Pornhub.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you see Adar run away with quote unquote the sword in the blanket. What did you think? I saw this. What did you think? Again, this goes back to the Halbrand reveal. He saves Elendil's life.
Right.
Why?
I don't think he knows that he doesn't have foresight. You know what I mean?
Like that's his biggest op. Like as the kids say. Like
I think the Sauron that Adar explains would save Elendil. He wanted to bring chaos to the world. Not chaos. He wanted to bring order to a world of chaos, and he sees Elendil as like a strong ally, just like he sees. Isn't that right? Like, don't you think?
I guess. I mean,
what do you think?
I don't know. It feels like one of those things where it only works if you don't know the reveal. I don't know. I'm not saying that he knows who Elendil is going to become or Isildur is going to become.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know. I'm very curious for season 2. I'm
Well,
just
do you, because you're curious about what that means for their relationship?
I guess like it is
I just think
Galadriel
it's supposed to be ironic, is all.
because like they go back to Numenor and they're dealing, with their politics now
Right.
with like a blind queen regent and all that. So it's like, does Galadriel be like, oh, by the way, that guy that saved your life is the baddest of all the bad Dark Lords, by the way, and
Right.
we helped him, and yeah, like
I
it's like
don't think
the Hangover call when Bradley Cooper's like, we fucked up.
Yeah, see, because that's one of the questions people have is how does Sauron go back to Numenor now that he's revealed to Galadriel who he is? Is Galadriel going to do another dum dum and not tell them who he is?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like that is like an intriguing part of the show is because like honestly hadn't thought about that until like a second ago where I'm just like, oh yeah, they go their separate ways. Like they're in Rivendell
that's
when
right.
he reveals that, and then she blacks out, and then
Erebor.
is it Erebor?
I think because that's where they forged the things there.
Oh, okay, I
I
could
think
be
they're in
wrong.
Erebor.
But yeah, just it's gonna be very interesting to see that. But I like Halbrand looks great in his armor. I like the chase scene with them. I kind of selfish me would have wanted an Adar versus Galadriel fight rather than him just getting
Sure.
taken down.
Sure.
Like, and then then Halbrand just comes in. Like, I'm not saying, but it's like if you're gonna have Adar when he says later, like I split Sauron in two, which, hey, okay,
Yo, go to
hey
pornhub.com/podcast the
yo,
rings. Let's go.
3 goblins, 1 cup. But like you have Adar, if that's true, I don't know what's true and what's not, but like I think that'd be a pretty good fight between
Yeah.
them, so that'd be really cool. And then have Halbrand just kind of like walk by and just like kind of bash him on the head or something. But a cool, like he does trips the horse,
Which is
and
awful. That's talking about stress, like that stresses me
I
out.
think that horse was CGI.
No. Oh, no. That was, you think so?
I think so. I was watching it because I'm like, they haven't done that in that got outlawed. Like, because
Really?
I remember there was a
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better if that's the case.
there was a Dustin Hoffman show, and that was like supposed to be his big kind of comeback because that was when like HBO was like, they'd had Sopranos and
Oh.
stuff, but like now it was like, oh, now we're getting A-list movie star. It was right after True Detective. So now it was like, okay, A-list movie stars can be in TV shows now. That was kind of the big shift. And now we see that everywhere. But I can't remember what it was called. It's called Lucky or something like that, or Luck, and it was about horse racing. But like in the first season, I think like 5 horses died.
Oh,
Like it was not, and so they literally shut it down. They're like, okay, whatever you're doing it wrong, and we can't do this anymore. So they literally shut it down.
How do you continue even like after number 1?
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman, I don't know.
No, it's okay. You can look up what's his face's takes, John Oliver's takes. Some pretty good Dustin Hoffman stuff.
I've seen that clip.
Yeah,
Great stuff.
It's a good clip.
But so I do think that's a CGI horse because I was watching it because I was like, is that no? That it looks fake. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, that's helpful. That's helpful because otherwise it's just stressful.
But yeah, but I like Adar is just like tier 1 gaslighter when he's like, no, I don't remember you. Did I kill your woman? Did I kill your child? Like,
Do you think he doesn't know?
I don't know. Like, that's the
Because
thing.
he even
Is that,
says when he's in captured in the barn, "Who are you?" Like he doesn't know. I think Sauron was discorporated.
so you actually think like he killed Sauron and this is like a totally new form?
Yes.
So who, like, that's the thing is that what are they gonna do with like I was listening to our last episodes, like what are they gonna do? Sauron is returning and like, yeah, he's in a new form, but he has no army. The orcs are loyal to Adar because he says in his speech with Gladiators, like, Sauron treated them like pawns, like an army. I'm treating them like family.
Right.
And so that's why they followed me. And so he doesn't, I don't even know if he holds ill will, but like he thinks Sauron's like a poser. It's like Morgoth was the true Dark Lord. Sauron is, his wannabe. And so I'm really wondering what they're going to do with Adar and Sauron in this second season. I'm super, super
You brought up a
curious.
question that I hadn't even thought about, like, what was Adar doing there with Sauron, right?
Yeah.
What was his rank or what part of the
And,
world?
and that's the thing, like, Galadriel doesn't bring up once that he's an elf.
She does.
She does?
I think
Like,
she
well, like,
refers
she
to him
says,
as the
like,
corrupted.
yeah, like, he's like, oh, no, your people were a mistake. Morgoth, twisted elves, just like he twisted you or something like that. So
Yeah.
there, but it's like, it's one thing to see an orc and be like, oh, that's a corrupted elf. It's another thing to see, like, he's an elf with a little bit of scars. Like, he's like a Joker elf. And
That's
so
why
it's
I
like,
think he genuinely yeah, he is a Joker elf. That's why I think he genuinely is the father of these orcs somehow.
yeah,
I think in this world, orcs are the offspring of corrupted elves rather than the orcs being corrupted elves themselves.
okay.
So I think there's a woman orc a woman uruk somewhere, just birthing out baby orcs, and that because he even says, and this was pointed at the beginning of the episode, females and the women and the brothers and sisters, like, and no one's ever talked about female orcs before. So I
Yeah.
think they're trying to establish that there is a familial thing there.
Okay.
That's just what I think.
No. It's I love theories. They're fun.
Because I think there's also been multiple versions of what Tolkien put out there as the orc explanation. So I think
Mm,
what this show is trying to put their stake in the ground is that these are the offspring of corrupted elves. So it would make sense that he's not a full orc. Instead he's just been darkened by Morgoth.
got it. But yeah, it's a great conversation with him and Galadriel. I wish it was like a little louder. I don't know. Like
But don't you love how whispery it is?
it is very whispery, but but I love that um, like Sauron is about to, or Halbrand is about to kill him, and he's like, no, we need to question him, and then like again, I understand that like growth doesn't have to be completely linear with a person, but the fact that he triggers her, and I've decided. I hate this storyline that Galadriel is like so driven by her revenge that she's like darkness in core. Like, I hate it. I legitimately don't like. No, there's a difference between someone like clouded by rage and anger between a legitimately evil being, which is who Adar and Morgoth and Sauron are. There's a difference, and they're trying to make the comparison. It's like, oh yeah, well, you're so driven by your brother dying that I can't even tell the difference between you and Morgoth.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
not true.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah, but they're treating it like the show is. I understand that like he can say that to get under her skin because maybe that's
Sure.
what she's thinking. Because she says it in the last episode. It's like, even my best friend couldn't tell me from enemy or foe, anymore. Like, that's why I feel like they wanted to banish, or send me to Valinor.
Right.
But the show is treating her like that when multiple people say it. Because Elrond has said it with his actions, Halbrand has said it, and now Adar has said it.
Right.
And so it's just like, I don't like this angle because there is a difference. There's a big difference. And I'm here for Galadriel's growth. I'm here for her becoming the Lady of Light that she's going to become. But
fighting for good is different than fighting for evil.
Yeah.
She's not trying to conquer.
Like, that's the thing, is that they needed to show, like, in the first episode, Lady Galadriel, so many of us have died on this journey, and the rest of us are sick and on our last legs, and like, you're by yourself, and we need to go. Like, they say they've been ordered home, but like, everyone makes it home safe. Like, no one dies on screen.
And she's
And they
not
don't-
trying to take over. She's not trying to fucking set off an entire volcano and displace Southlanders in order to take over
Yeah.
the world. She isn't Morgoth.
Because literally,
That's a
when
really good point.
after they get the sword, Adar literally says, kill everybody.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, there is a clear difference between someone who, maybe has really good intentions, but is going about it the wrong way diplomatically,
Sure.
than someone who wants to destroy an entire homeland, just an entire part of the world and cover it in literal darkness while his people are torturing and starving and indiscriminately killing anybody that gets in their way.
Wow, so you're a Paul Atreides apologist? This is wild. This is a
Yeah, I
hot
am.
take.
Paul did nothing wrong. Lisa
This is a hot take.
I love that gif, like, after he fights Fade Routha, because like everyone's calling, you love the term glaze, but like everyone's calling Stilgar a tier 1 glazer. And just like the fact that
He's
right
not
after
glazed? He's not he's
no,
a
he is the
glazer?
glazer.
Okay.
He, as soon as he beats Fade Routha, because it's a close fight, but as soon as like Fade Routha falls over, he just goes, "Listen, Al-Gaib." Like he never had any doubt. It's just like, it's like, that's my boy. That's
I
right.
genuinely will watch that movie again just for his moments of saying the son Al-Gaib. It's too good.
Did you see where it was like someone dropped a meme where it was Chani? He's like, "Oh no, the Lisan Al-Gaib should be a Fremen," that whole conversation, but it's in Arakan or whatever they're Arakeen, right?
Okay. Arakeen is a city.
That's right. Whatever their language is.
Okay.
It's in,
Gallic.
Gallic. Sorry, I'm always bad with
Gallic is like the universal, like their universal language that is known on all the planets. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, like it's in their
It's
language,
in the Fremen language.
Fremen language. Yeah.
Yeah. Fremen.
Okay. But they changed it to be like, now Dune 2 is on VOD and more people can watch it. And she's like, it should be in theaters. It's where it belongs. And when he says blasphemy, he goes, cringe. I'll have to put it on the Discord.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, man. Dune memes are just this really great stuff. But going back to the episode, there's like a great conversation with them. But it's also one of those things, and, maybe it's a good thing where it's like, I want more answers. Like, I want more. And it's a good thing, but I wish they had given us like a few more of like, because are we going to find out who Adar ever was? I hope so. But, real world stuff does get in the way of TV productions. And so, like, if they change actors and kind of yada yada him and kill him off screen or, in the first episode or something, that's going to be really frustrating. Because you have introduced this character that can rival Sauron at the height of his powers. Like, that's
in my belief, discorporated him.
Yeah, beat him, overthrew him, took his army.
Yeah.
Like,
he's a bad dude.
He's a bad dude, and like, you need to explain how. Like, at some point you need to explain how.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I do. This is why I didn't even realize Dune was coming up. I do a good job of like forgetting season 2 is coming, because if I thought about it, I'd be like too anxious. So I'm really trying my best. I know eventually we'll get like a trailer or something. I'm doing my best like to not have any assumptions as to what's going to happen, because I don't want to be disappointed or excited for something that's not going to happen. Like our mutual friend Scott Rubin was so upset because he was so sure that with Dune 1 ending with the Jamis fight, that we would get the sequence where in the book they do a whole sequence where I was a friend of Jamis. I was a friend of Jamis. I was a friend. Like, this is how they carry the memory of someone that they've had to fight. And Scott was torn apart that scene didn't happen, because it's carried. It's a theme that's carried throughout the book.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, I don't want to be like, don't be like Scott Rubin and like over anticipate something.
Yeah, that is a big problem. Like, when Multiverse of Madness came out, like, everyone's like, oh, there's going to be the Tom Cruise Iron Man. There's like, Hugh Jackman's going to be in there. Like, we've gotten so much multiverse stuff that everyone was just like, they need A, B, and C. They need, Chris Evans as Human Torch. Fantastic. Like, and we didn't get that. And so this isn't me like projecting what I want out of something, because that always ends up in failure.
Yeah.
But I do feel like this is something they need to explain.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that that's what I mean is like, I'm disappointed when I'm pre-disappointed thinking about, just like what you said, life gets in the way, the strike got in the way, the actor changed. So many different plans can happen from what they set up. And also that's just the danger of doing this over the scope of time that they're doing this.
For sure.
Jeez, yeah, interesting. Because I think they are doing like another Kelvin timeline Star Trek, but they're not going to have the Yuri kid anymore to be. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? Like, it's just life happens like that. So anyway, this episode ends with our true king Bronwyn given over to the king because, like you said, she's fucking done. She's like, "Are
She's
you the king we were
she's like,
promised?"
I got shot. Like, it's go ahead. Who's the king? Is it that guy? Done. Bye.
Great.
Like,
Great. She fucking gives them everything. The rumbling happens. Barrick called it, truth or Barrick. And then the volcano, we realized what the tunnels were for. The volcano Udûn gets the water released onto it and covers the land in
yeah,
darkness.
we see what the sword is actually for with the key. And what's
Which
his
I
name?
actually will not even spend time talking about how overconstructed this whole idea was, but it's still cool. It's still cool.
Yeah, like it what like seeing it again, I'm just like, yeah, this makes no sense. But like, the first time you watch it, you're like, whoa, that's such a big reveal.
It's such a good red herring / MacGuffin. You know
It
what I
is
mean?
like where you think they got the sword, you think they've won the day. Somehow they've already set up, an 80-person picnic and they're already partying and anointing Halbrand as the king. Great. They waste no time. Numenor knows how one thing, it's how to party. But it's everybody's dead. I'm sorry. Like, I've seen, footage of like real volcanoes and what they do to people and to towns and to like surrounding everything. And if you have in the same shot as the fire cloud approaches, trees being lit on fire, buildings being destroyed, and Galadriel just standing there, like, you know what? Galadriel will survive. She's Galadriel.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else, dead.
Dead.
Just like the fact that this opens up, with like a post-apocalyptic, like, oh, ash in the air. Oh my, no, you're all Pompeii
You're all
citizens.
Pompeii.
Like, you are like,
Yeah.
you're done.
Wow.
You are too close to that. Like, you are T2 Sarah Connor, like on the fence, just Skeletors, like all of y'all. And it's a great ending to a scene, but like, I remember seeing the discourse online and everyone's like, oh, is everyone dead? Like, is everyone dead? And then like, they're like, oh, well, a building fell on me. The building doesn't, you can't even, you're gone. You are vaporized.
Everything's leveled here.
Like, if that's, you know what? That's how I want to go out. I don't want to feel anything. Like, I made the TikTok where Quiet Place Part 1.
Yes.
And, like, there's like the
For a second, I thought it was her that happened to, and I was so confused that they ended her right away.
Yeah, she was like, help, help. And, the first, like, oh, got the first guy. That's me. I don't want to feel a thing. I want you don't need to 800-pound on, like, impregnable alien to just linebacker hit me in the back, spine broken, concussed, brain coming out of my ears, gone. I don't want to live through the apocalypse. Like, I've been watching Fallout. I'm like, why? I don't want to be that guy, but like, why are you guys trying so hard to survive? Like, I don't get it.
Nature finds a way, bro.
Nature finds a way. I'm not nature. Take me out.
I do love that take because, like, I think we all like to think of ourselves as the Frodo or as the Tom Cruise or as
like I'd be Rick Grimes. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
Yeah.
And you know what? None of us. We'd all die. None of us would be Brad Pitt in World War Z. No one. We're all just dead.
What I realized too is that I might get past day 3 and think I'm doing really well.
Right.
And then sepsis takes me. You know what I mean?
That's the thing.
And
is
that's
it like
worse.
every day there isn't like a reset button where like you just gotta, this isn't a video, this isn't Minecraft where you gotta slay the Elder Dragon and then you can enjoy the game. No.
It's called the Ender Dragon.
Is it Ender? It is Ender. I've been watching a lot of Elden Ring. That's why. But yeah.
I just want you to make fun of me. That's all.
No, it's fine. But just like, this is just every day. It never ends. And so it's just like, oh man, just end me. Like Day
I'm
one,
tired.
great. Sounds great. Day one, perfect.
Just
You
like
know what?
floating there watching it.
Like there's an anime where like it had a lot of production problems, so I'm wondering what's gonna happen to it. But it was called Day 100 or Zombie of the Dead or something like that, where like a guy who's uh in a really toxic work environment where he's just like working 18-hour days, getting no rest, bags under his eyes, terrible boss, and zombies take over and he's like, this is great, I don't have to go to work. And then like he's got like, oh, it's bucket list of the dead, if
Oh,
anyone,
funny,
that's what,
funny.
yeah, bucket list of the dead. And he literally makes a bucket list of like, I never got to ride a motorcycle, I never got to go to a hot spring, I never got to do this. And it's a great it's a really fun show, and it's weird like the production issues it had, so we'll see what happens to it. But it's like, it's literally that, you know what, give me a week to like not worry about customers or, you know, work or bills, and then I'll just like die. Like, I'm
And then
fine.
live it and then die a horrible, like, yeah,
That's the thing.
it.
Like, give me a week to like enjoy this, and then before humanity starts like truly folding in on itself, where I'm gonna get killed by some raiders or, you know, like
Or
some
trains off
cannibals
the
or
rail or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
just yeah.
It's a really, I think nothing was more scary to me in War of the Worlds than the train that was on fire and still on their track. That was
People,
actually
that is one of the most underrated movies
it's
where
a
it's
good
just,
movie,
I really like that movie a lot.
but it's overshadowed by like the anecdotes of people like of Scientologists having tents set up for those massive scenes to recruit people. Like that's
Oh,
yeah,
ooh, ooh.
yeah, yeah.
No
That's
thanks.
no, I know. Anyway,
Yeah.
anything else now that we've rewatched it and we were looking forward to this episode and it's behind us and we're heading to unarguably the worst episode of this season.
Yes.
What is your takeaway from this?
Some really, really good stuff. I think we got a lot of questions answered with Adar and Halbrand,
Right.
and yeah, the charge should have been and could have been shot better, but there's still some really satisfying stuff, some great action that, you know, yeah, we come to Lord of the Rings for the stories, but you know what? You do have knights in shining armor on a white horse charging and saving in people, and that is the fantasy stuff we come to love. And you know, like there's some pretty brutal violence in this one, like, and so we do get the best of Middle Earth and some stuff that, again, I can't even blame this on budget, because this budget is probably higher than any of the movies.
And the argument of how much of it being spent for, appropriating the rights still doesn't there's unlimited funds when it comes to Amazon.
This is Amazon, like their profits are ungodly.
You don't get to use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
It's just weird the places where they chose to focus. The orcs are great, the armor isn't.
Yeah, you know, like we've mentioned a few times, but like these are all makeup actors in suits, and they all look really
And
great.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
But then Elendil can't fit his fucking scales and they can't move in them. It's just weird. Those like little weird, and I wouldn't even say it's corners. It's just like, I love this. I love that Andy Serkis ends up being the second director in the Hobbit movies, because that's how much Peter Jackson realizes he's got a kindred artist that he can
Yes.
relinquish the second team to Andy Serkis, because that man's going to keep contact and he's going to keep his eye on the details as much as possible in this green screen movie that they were trying to do.
Yeah, they were writing like day of.
I don't know that they delegated to people that had the eye that kept these details in mind. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's just one of my thoughts. I think I looked back on this episode as so good because it really did answer so many questions, and it felt a lot of resolution, and while still going, oh, it's good, oh, it's really bad. It's just the volcano surprised me. It really did.
It in the moment it does work. Like it's kind of with everything, with a Rube Goldberg machine type thing. Like it does fall apart if you think about it, but
Sure.
the twist is good. Like where you're like, oh, you think they've won the day? Nope, they didn't. Now, like granted, we're headed for title card Mordor next episode.
Oh, that's right.
But in the moment where, even I had kind of, the first time I watched this, even I had kind of forgotten, like, oh yeah, the Southlands is Mordor.
Yeah.
Like they kind of had slipped my mind watching the show. And so when you have, like, oh, we're creating a home for ourselves, like the book reader and, repeat movie watcher might miss that until you see a volcano explode and cover the ground with ash and darken the sky. You're like, oh, this is that. And it's so
This
good.
whole season is the origin story for Mordor, and I'm cool
Yeah.
with it. That's why it's a slap in the face when they do the title card with it.
Ah.
Anyway, join us for that travesty of an episode next week. If you want these shows early, if you want to join us for the watch through, head over to patreon.com/podcast of the rings. There's also different ways you can get in contact with us over the internet, but that's the best way you can help show your support. Ben, if they're listening to us on their preferred podcast player, what should they do?
Give us 5 stars if you're on the Apple Podcast. I think they just put in reviews for Spotify as well.
You
so
can
make
rate
sure you guys
it
do
on the
that.
app, but I didn't know you could do comments. That's cool.
Yes, you can do comments. I've left comments on my friend's podcast. So make sure you do that, like, because I understand budgets be tight. I know mine is as well, but 5 stars and a review is always free, and it helps us so much, guys. It really does help us a lot. So we're at 4.9. One person gave us a 4, so I'd like to. I don't know if we can get past that 4 and get a 5, but I'd like to be at 4.99 if we can get there.
Ooh, I think that sounds good. I think we deserve that.
I think so.
And we can turn the heart of that 1.0 person.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, until we meet again.
Mayor passed me again.
Shit.